Welcome, everybody. I'm Steve Drost. With me, as always, we've got Will Kaplan, of course, both of us from the Quivr team. What is Quivr? We are the CRM built by financial advisors for financial advisors, where our objective is simple. How can we make your life just a little bit better? Will, you've known me long enough now to know that if I see a button, or if I'm at the museum and they tell me I can't touch something, I really want to touch it and I really want to push that button.
Yeah, and Steve, this is one of those ones where like I pushed a button the other day and something new showed up on my screen that I wasn't familiar with, and I kind of didn't know what to do with it. And so then like one button leads to another button and off we go, right?
Yeah. The topic today, it's the onboarding module. And we actually had a user join the platform about a year and a half ago. And they told us that if they had known about the onboarding module, they would have signed up a year earlier. So that I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. But the whole point of the onboarding module, we'll talk about what it's trying to solve, and then we'll dive into what it is. But the whole point of the onboarding module is, you work your butt off to get a prospect, prospective new client. You then work your butt off to show your value, and then you get that yes, right? And then that's when the work starts. And as fun as it is getting a yes, we all love it, right? The endorphins, the high, right? We love getting that yes. I remember back in the day, I'd get that yes, and that high would last a second. And then I'd have this like pit in my stomach of, crap, I have to do 1,000 things now to get this client onboarded. And I don't have a lot of relationship equity yet. So it's got to go smooth. We don't want any NIGOs at Schwab. We can't have people re-signing things. I can't forget a piece of paper. It needs to go smoothly, because this is the first thing that they're trusting me with.
Yeah, I mean, Kitsis has a ton of writing on this, and just in this is like that first opportunity for you to really make a memory with that client of what it's like working with Steve, what it's like working with Will. Why did I hire them in the first place? And you really want that to be a positive outcome, a positive experience for them, and being organized and being able to show off that you're really organized. That's a big part of being a planner.
And we've all worked with professionals or organizations that it's a seamless process, and that's great. And then we've also worked with organizations that it's not. And I guarantee you that we all remember the bad experiences more than we remember the good ones, right? So it is incredibly important that we gain relationship equity in this process. We don't lose it. So again, what is the onboarding module other than trying to make this as seamless as possible with essentially no errors? It is essentially a highly customized by your firm, which again, we teach you how. It is not challenging, but it's a highly customized, more or less electronic checklist that allows you to make sure that everything that needs to get done gets done. Everything from, we gathered the correct amount of information, we know what accounts we're opening, we know what paperwork we need, we know what bank we're linking, we know that the portfolio rebalancing tool is set up correctly, that the Schwab access is correct. They're getting everything that needs to get done. You put it in one spot, and then you just work through that. And you know that if you work through that and you take your time and you make sure you're doing things correctly and accurately, that you shouldn't have any problems, and it should be smooth. And again, like the last 10 or 15 clients that we've onboarded at Drost Financial, we don't have errors. Because if we have an error because Schwab changes something, we just update our onboarding module and that mistake doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and it's so nice. My wife is probably, I mean, like she is it's such a rush out of crossing something off a list, right? It's just part of her personality, but like that's what this is. I mean, you said it exactly. It's a digital checklist of, here's all the things that I know that I need. Here's where that information is. It's tightly organized around this onboarding aspect. And you're right. There is this like, oh, I won the relationship. Like they're coming over, they want to sign up. And then there's the, oh, and I have to do like a million different things in order to do it. And it's even harder when it's a lot of different people doing things. Cause like the last firm I worked at, CSAs did all the onboarding. Like they were reaching out, they were sending an email. We're going to get you connected in eMoney. We're going to get you up and on Orion. We're going to, do this, that, and the other. Here's a bunch of DocuSigns that are coming at you. And so as the advisor, where when I had my own practice, I did all myself, going to where are we in this thing? Like, I don't know what's gone and what hasn't. And the client is not like, the client wants to reach out to me because I'm the relationship part of it. I don't know how to answer their question quickly. Like, I don't know where we are with this. And then you've got the chief operating officer being like, hey, we onboarded, 30 new households last month. How's that going? Where are we with all of that? Like, is it smooth? And so there's so many uses for this particular module in terms of reporting, in terms of gathering information, in terms of making sure it's smooth and there's no NIGOs. Like, it's a really crucial part. It's just we don't always use it all of the time. And so, yeah, I think there's a massive amount of value there.
Yeah, it is something, right? I always tell people in office hours or even in demos, I'll do my best to tell you the difference between a fact and a very strong opinion. And it is a very strong opinion that you use the onboarding module every single time you onboard a new client. And I'd also challenge you to use the onboarding module if the type of relationship for the same client changes. So if you're somebody that does retainer business and they convert to AUM, yeah, that's not really onboarding a new client, but you are, because now you're opening accounts, you're setting up bank, money links, all that kind of stuff, transfers, you name it. That's a big enough change where the relationship is sort of quasi new. And we recommend, again, you use this every single time. But yeah, the benefits there's a ton of them. But in order to use the onboarding module, and we're going to do some screen sharing here and go into detail. A lot of this will be philosophical. But there's two real key things that we recommend you look at. One is all of the onboarding module videos inside of our community, which there are a bunch. Again, we tell you some facts about it and some very strongly held opinions. But then also inside of the community, we have a masterclass that is designed, it's called Perfecting Your Onboarding Process, and it is designed to teach you step by step on how to use this. And then also it brings in other Quivr features that we believe are going to help you use it better. And we'll look at that masterclass today as well. But Will, before I share and dive in, anything else you'd like to share?
No, I think this is a perfect place to pivot and actually get into it a little bit and kind of go through it in a meaningful way so that people understand, like, why does it work the way it does and what are the other things you'd want to pull in it along the way. So no, that's great.
Perfect. So if we look at a household, right, we do everything at the household level inside of Quivr. Who's the people that are signing that contract? So let's just say Jim and Pam said, yep, we're in, we're becoming clients. You'll notice the onboarding module becomes available. And if we go ahead and we click in on this, it's simply like we said earlier, just a massive online checkbox. But the beautiful part about this is you get to customize this however you want. You are in charge. You are the captain. Now, the out of the box version that just comes with standard inside of Quivr is more or less my firm's onboarding process. And we give you that so you can, again, if it's the exact same, you can copy that. I highly doubt it's the exact same, but tweak it and make it your own. And how we think about it is the top has more or less statuses, operations, client agreements, custodial paperwork, Black Diamond, right? Your portfolio management tool. Is like, where are we with all of these? So Will, I love what you said earlier about the COO. We onboarded 30 clients last month. How are we doing? Well, if you have these things here, you could create a dashboard, which is essentially just a nice display of information to see any client that's going through the onboarding process, where are we, right? Maybe these are things that are done in sequential order. You could almost have a Kanban-esque view where, you got people in column A, B, C, D, E, F, and you can just see, okay, we've got 13 clients who are in the operational status, 6 that we're waiting on client or custodial paperwork for. And, the other 15, I can't keep track of the math. The other 15, money's over, accounts open, and now we're just cleaning up some administrative stuff on the back end. You could also create fields that timestamp when these are done. So tell me the day that this is done, which then means, well, if this is done, then this means that this one is now starting. And if this one is done, that means this one is now starting. So in theory, you could then calculate, okay, it's taking us an average of 7.5 business days for custodial paperwork to be processed at Charles Schwab from the day that we send that paperwork to them. So now smaller firms, maybe that type of data isn't quite as important for you. Like, I would never need that. But if you're onboarding 30 people a month, I would want that information because then I can isolate, well, what's taking long and what can I improve? How is that working, right? But Will, anything you want to add on the first section?
I think that reporting part is it can be so powerful. So if you're at a larger firm, being able to take that back to a Charles Schwab or back to a Fidelity and say, like, look, we got you this paperwork. This is the date that it came in. This is the date that the account opened. It's 10 days.
Yeah,
Why? Like, you're
right.
killing us over here where, Schwab has their digital onboarding thing where, like, the accounts open in 20 minutes. Like, it's just being able to have that level of reporting to be able to take it back and then negotiate, like, hey, we need more people on our team. This isn't working for us. Like, it's so powerful for those larger firms.
And we do have firms tracking that information. I know we do. We've helped them create that. Just like if a client comes to you and says that we need something, we're not happy about XYZ, Schwab or Fidelity, if you're onboarding 30 people a month, they're going to listen to you, which is kind of cool. But right, this is just maybe the status. Like where are we with everything? How's it all going? Then down here is where you actually write what you need to do. So your administrative notes, like what do you need to do? Make sure that there are folders created in the document repository. Make sure the ADV gets set. Like whatever you need to do, have that here. Client agreements, right? Maybe you give yourself a notes box. Like what kind of client are they becoming? Client agreement status. Notice in here, we're actually giving them information, right? So if we look at this, who's completing this? Who's creating the onboarding module? 9 out of 10 times, it is the advisor or secondary advisor that got the yes from the client that's working on the case. And they are the ones that are launching this and giving the information to the rest of the team, right? You mentioned that at your prior firm, the CSA team was knocking out all this paperwork. Perfect. That's very common. Well, this is now the bridge from the advisory team to the CSA or back office team on what you need to know. So these client agreement items right here, this is what my team needs in order to complete the client agreement and the IPS. It's right here. And you take it a step further, right? We don't want the CSAs to have to come back to the advisory team because they need information. You can make these required fields. And in my live environment, they are required fields. Now, they're not required in this dummy environment because you don't want to do that in dummy environments. But if you're sick and tired of the CSAs having to come back to the advisory team, make them required. You need to know the estimated value of investable assets because that is on your IPS. Make it required, right? What custodial paperwork are you opening? I mean, this right here is a multi-select pick list. We're opening a joint account, a traditional IRA, and a revocable trust. Move those over, hit save. We've now told our CSA team what we're opening for, and then client one, we're opening this for Jim. That's what I need. You're telling your CSA team what they need. Any questions so far, Will?
No, one of the things that I love about this too is those statuses at the top reflect down to these sections. And so like as I'm filling out these sections, that's rolling back up and I can see sort of like, oh, I'm halfway through maybe, the custodial paperwork process. And the reason that it's bogged down is because, there's a note in here under the, that particular section that they need more information from me, the advisor, or they're waiting from the client. So again, from that communication standpoint, a lot of that information is just, it can be contained in here. It's organized in here. I don't have to disrupt the CSAs because they're leaving me notes in here. But I can see like, oh, is there anything that I need to do? Do I need to reach out to the client? Do I need to make sure this is going smoothly? Like the way that it's just organized between section and then status, I think makes a ton of sense.
No, perfect. And we talk about the onboarding module. It is meant to be customized. It really is, because we tell users and prospective users that I'd make the argument that operations for advisory firms is maybe 80, 85, 90% the same from firm to firm. Right? We're all opening accounts. It's more or less the same, but maybe you're submitting it to a different custodian or your broker dealer needs a specific piece of information that's unique to you. So we do highly recommend you customize this so that it is perfect for your firm. And of course, we teach you how to do that in the community. It is not hard to add a field or to delete a field or to move things around. And we teach you step by step. Creating a new field, the first time you do it might take 3 minutes. The second time you do it, it's going to take you 1. So an hour to customize this. And then maybe, after your first time using it, you'll spend 20 minutes updating it because shoot, we got an error because we forgot this. We'll add it and then, you come back in and you tweak it. Then the second or third time you use it, maybe you got another thing you need to update. But hopefully after you use this 3-4 times, you're not making changes anymore unless you make a technology change, right? You're not using Schwab anymore. You switch to Fidelity, or you're not using e-money anymore. You switch to Right Capital, or not even an or. Like that's pretty much the only time you'll make a change is if technology partners change their rules or if you change technology partners.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to let people know too. It is an iterative process. Like you use it, you find out what parts are working well, great. You find out where the rough edges are, you make some adjustments. That's the beauty of this though, is that you can just keep coming back to it, adding sections, adding fields, moving things around. Like it's designed to sort of grow with you and then evolve as your technology choices evolve.
Perfect. So that's the onboarding module itself. Now, how do you actually use it effectively? We have in our community hundreds of videos teaching you not only what I would say the blocking and tackling of Quivr is, how do you create a new household? How do you create a workflow? How do you launch a workflow? And a lot of our videos are on kind of that baseline knowledge that you just simply need to know in order to operate a CRM. And a lot of those are super intuitive and have some of the lowest view rates in the community as well. But what we also try to do, and I feel like we're doing it well, and if we're not, please let us know, is to provide you with that maybe next level of information. So yeah, you've got an onboarding module, but how do I actually use it? And we call these our master classes. So for example, we have one called Perfecting the Onboarding Process, and we go incredibly deep in this video on how to use the onboarding module, right? This is the online checkbox where you will track each and every item that must be completed to successfully onboard a client. And we recommend you click this link and go watch our onboarding module videos so you understand exactly what this function can do, right? What this feature is meant to be used. However, you also are most likely going to use Archr because Archr, again, is our operational framework, right? It's your workflows, your automations. You're going to use Archr in tandem with the onboarding module because you have this beautiful, we come back into the module, you have these beautiful lists and whatnot, but you need to have workflows making sure that all of this stuff actually happens. If you're going to open, these 3 accounts, we have to have workflows that walk you through opening those accounts. Simply stating we're going to open a joint account isn't sufficient. So what we recommend you do is first, phase 1 is you're empowering that team and you're documenting the process. And that's more or less what we just talked about. How do you, phase 1, it's the sharing of information, empowering your team. So for example, back in the onboarding module, well, what information does my mom need to do the client agreement and the IPS? That's why those are required fields, because I know if those 8 fields are filled out, she will never come ask me a question about a client agreement or an IPS. It's done. So I'm empowering my team. So what information does my team need to successfully complete that paperwork? And what information do I need to give my team so they know what paperwork to complete? Who are the beneficiaries, right? Who are all of these people? So that's the first step, making sure that you've shared that information from the advisory team to the back office so you've empowered them to do what they need to do. Will, do you have any questions on that? Anything you want to add?
No, I think that's it exactly. And I think that's also where you're going to get a lot of this, I know you've alluded in the past, kind of the whiteboard approach of get the people in the room. If it's a larger firm, talk to your CSAs, talk to your advisors, get the feedback of where does this typically break down? That's that information that I have to have in order to move forward. And it may take a couple passes before you have it perfect. But once you've got it, then you've got your checklist of okay, this is a no go, a no, or excuse me, a go, no go on can we move forward with this paperwork? Well, no, I don't have a social. I'm still missing stuff. And so that's how you can really use this to smooth out the wrinkles in your process.
Yep, no, exactly. So once you've empowered the team, we just kind of scroll back up here. I think there's 3 phases to this. So you've empowered the team, you got the yes, you know what work needs to be done. But there's kind of 2 phases how I view it of that work that needs to be done. The first phase is stuff that we do for everybody. So if we go back to my onboarding module, right? What's in native Quivr here? Well, we're going to need most likely an IPS or a client agreement for everybody, right? We're just going to need that. We're going to need to create a folder in their document repository for everybody, right? We're just going to need to make sure we have that. We're going to create e-money for everybody, but maybe in your firm you do AUM and retainer. So maybe you're not opening accounts, or maybe you're not opening a trust for everybody. And that's phase 2. Phase 2 is that client dependent work, the stuff that changes from client to client. So a perfect example is you're not doing the same ACAT transfers for every single client. Maybe some clients you're doing ACATs, other clients you've got to call the 401k provider and do the non-ACAT transfer. Maybe some people have a trust and some don't. Some have an LLC account and some don't. The list goes on and on and on. Some want access to your portal and some don't want access to the portal or the portfolio rebalancing tool. So we need to make sure that the onboarding module remains nimble enough to make sure, right, that the stuff we need to do for everybody happens every time. But then we can kind of go a la carte almost, and we can pick and choose that stuff that's more client dependent. So how do we do this, Will? How do you think it's done? It's almost like we talk about workflows all the time. And this is
Right.
another reason to have them. So on the household, all you do is you create an onboarding workflow. This is the stuff we need to do for everybody. We have to have the IPS. We have to have the client agreement. We have to send them an ADV. We have to do the suitability or fiduciary reviews. These are the things we have to do, the table stakes. But then what you want to do is have a library of workflows for all of your a la carte work. So are we, obviously this isn't complete, but maybe there's a workflow for opening in that joint account. Maybe there's a workflow for opening the irrevocable trust, or maybe there's a workflow for doing ACAT transfers. So how this is meant to be done is once you build that repository of workflows, which we give you 125 templates. So use our templates and change them to match your firm. But once you build those, It's almost like your advisory team is coming into the household and just creating a work order. What do we need? So what we want to see is that advisory team that knows what needs to be done. They come in here, they launch the onboarding module, and they provide their team with the information that they need. They empower their team to complete the work that they need. And then the advisory team sits here and they kick off a ton of workflows. They kick off the onboarding module workflow that the work that needs to be done for everybody. And then they just order things, right? We need to do, again, this isn't going to match onboarding, but we need to do we need to open a trust, kick that off. We need to open up, we need to do 2 ACAT transfers, kick that off. And then you just get all of the work that needs to be done into the system. And because all of your workflows are roles based, all of that work is just automatically getting sent to the person or to the queue that you need it to go to. And it should more or less just happen, right? But yeah, I don't know. Will, anything you want to add on that?
I think that it seems like it's so obvious and it seems like it's not a big deal, but where Quivr really can become powerful is if you take this approach, exactly what you're talking about, and you link a bunch of these things together where it's like, okay, I filled out the onboarding module. It included these particular tags. Those tags then talk to Archr, which says there's a process running that if this tag is in the system, I'm going to kick off this workflow. Like, it really gives you the ability to make sure that you're not forgetting things, make sure that you're not missing things, because they can just kind of seamlessly work together to ensure that, yep, we need a Roth IRA account for this client. Great. Kick off this workflow, see it documented through the system. That account is now open. We can take that off the list. Like, that moves over to completed from in process. So it can be just such a powerful way to make sure that your intention is actually becoming reality.
Exactly. And we all have the same outcome, a smooth onboarding process that doesn't cost us relationship equity. And we've onboarded hundreds of clients in our careers. So we do know what works and what doesn't work. And also what's really cool is these features have been enhanced based upon feedback from our users. So the first first year or two that, I guess we're in our 3rd year now, but the first year or two that we were building this out, the onboarding module masterclass, the perfecting the onboarding process, was not this good. I mean, it was fine, but we got feedback from other users about, well, how do I handle this for, client dependent work? And to me, that's just intuitive, because again, we're the weird ones, Will. We're the operations nerds. Most people that start their firms aren't operations nerds. They are more relationship, and they like marketing and then, autonomy, that kind of stuff, which we love that stuff too. But right, we get that feedback from our users, or we run into 5 users in a row who are struggling with the onboarding process, and we just keep making this better and better. But for real, the hope is that this gets rid of the pit in your stomach when it comes to onboarding users, and after you get that yes that you worked so hard to get.
Absolutely.
Anything else you'd like to add to this, Will?
No, I think that's a good overview of it. I mean, again, just to remind people, that onboarding module shows up when a household is in the onboarding state. When they become an ongoing relationship, we reclaim that space, but it doesn't mean that data is going away. It's still there. It's just not immediately displayed. You can always go back and get it if you want to review it later. You can kick off multiple onboarding modules. I mean, Steve alluded to that earlier, like a client transitions from a, planning only client to a planning plus a client. Great. Kick off another one to gather that extra data that you need, and just, those other statuses, they're connected to eMoney, they're connected to Black Diamond, like, move those immediately to completed, but you need to get that new agreement from the client. Open up open up the accounts at the custodian. Like, great, go do all that. Let that module guide you through that process.
It's a huge part of business, right? We're all trying to grow to meet our personal objectives, and the onboarding module is, again, a feature that we highly recommend. I can't say it's a fact, it's opinion, but we highly recommend you use every single time. But there you have it. That is the onboarding module. That is our recommendations on how to utilize Quivr to perfect that onboarding process. If you have questions about this, if you're a current user, get to office hours. We love to talk about this stuff. If you have ideas to make our onboarding masterclass better, tell us, because we will love to hear all feedback, constructive or not. So send that our way. And if you're not a Quivr user, that's okay. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. But if you're interested in seeing how you can perfect your onboarding process and maybe bring up that process to the 21st century, schedule a demo, come hang out with me and Will, and see what Quivr can do for you.